Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh, the severe weather. We're going to get right to it. A rare high risk for damaging tornadoes, winds, and hail has been issued for central parts of the country for the second time this year. And a very destructive outbreak of severe weather is likely to take place later today into the night tonight, with multiple days of severe weather, unfortunately, to follow right into this weekend. It's not going to be until about next Tuesday when things finally settle down across the country and temperatures turn cooler. I'm not only concerned about the threat for damaging tornadoes, there could be a widespread wind damaging threat heading into this evening across the Great Lakes and even into southwestern portions of Canada. There will be a major winter storm, which I'm not really going to talk much about, up in northeastern parts of Minnesota. And several days of very heavy rain could lead to over a foot of rain and catastrophic flooding as we get to the weekend across the central portion of the country as well, the Mid-South in particular, Mississippi Valley and lower Ohio River Valley as well. I do think this is going to be at least $1 billion disaster. I don't say that lightly. This is not to scare folks, but we saw about 40 of those last year. And this one could be one of the top events of the year across the United States, unfortunately. So we're going to get right to it. And if you could do me a favor, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, I urge you to do so. I'm going to try to get back on here later today with a second video, as things will likely be unfolding at that point. I'm going to share my screen, walk you through the technical aspects of these storms. I am a meteorologist, and I am going to get technical here, but I will do my best to explain everything to you all here. So the area in pink is the high risk for strong tornadoes. Cape Girardeau, Missouri, over into western Kentucky, western Tennessee, northeastern Arkansas. Unfortunately, once again, in that area of high risk for strong long track tornadoes. The area in red is also very much the danger zone from about Bloomington, Indiana, southwest into southern portions of Arkansas. There's an enhanced risk, which I think might even be extended northward more into Wisconsin and into central Ohio and into central Michigan, but the map doesn't even get us that far. For damaging winds and a few tornadoes as well later today into this evening, including Chicagoland and over to about Detroit, South Bend and Fort Wayne, Indiana, Toledo, Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, all the way down into DFW, which unfortunately is not on the map here, but I will show you here in just a little bit. Again, I don't take this lightly. I don't just throw numbers out there without researching them, but we had $27 billion weather events and disasters last year in the U.S., and many of them were involving destructive tornadoes and flash flooding. Unfortunately, the same area is targeted again as we head into the evening tonight. Here's a look at the latest satellite image showing our cyclone now beginning to intensify as it moves into Nebraska and Kansas. We are seeing storms that have developed last night in Oklahoma, North Texas, and Kansas. These are moving eastward through Missouri and will move into northwestern Arkansas and southeastern Oklahoma. There are tornado watches in effect. And unfortunately, this system will be followed by more impulses that could create damaging winds and tornadoes, and a constant feed of moisture coming in from both the Pacific and the Gulf. Here's a look at current temperatures, and you can see the warm air is thrusted northward all the way up into central Missouri, where temperatures are starting the day here at about 70 degrees at 66 in St. Louis. And if you are north of this boundary, Chicagoland, Des Moines, Milwaukee over to Detroit, just because it's chilly out there now doesn't mean you're not at risk. In fact, we're going to see the warm air surging northward and pulling all of the instability north as the day wears on. This is a very dynamic storm system with fast winds aloft. That's going to have the ability to very dramatically warm us up and bring more moisture in and increase our threat for wind damage and severe amounts of rain as well. So very warm temperatures here. It's going to stay warm all weekend across the southeast. We're going to see some record high potential in the mid-Atlantic and Carolinas as we get into Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday as well, out ahead of our next storm system. And here's a look at the map, which is unfortunately very colorful, with the area that sticks out the most being the massive area that's under a flash flood watch from northeastern Texas and southeastern Oklahoma all the way up towards about Lake Erie, including southeastern Michigan, including Ohio, western West Virginia, much of Kentucky, central and western Tennessee, southeastern Missouri, much of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, southern Illinois, central and southern portions of Indiana. We have a winter storm warning as well across parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota. We have winter weather advisories for a wintry mix, including some ice over parts of northern New England and New York State, over northern and central lower Michigan, the UP of Michigan, Wisconsin, all the way back into the Dakotas and Montana. We have high wind advisories across the south central and central United States and into western and upstate New York. And we have high fire danger as well over parts of southwest Texas, southern New Mexico, and southern Colorado, and wind advisories for portions of southern California, mainly up against the mountains as well. So unfortunately, the map is colorful, and I can't imagine it's going to get a lot better as the day wears on. You can see in the yellow, we do have tornado watches extending from just east of OKC up through Tulsa, northwestern Arkansas into western and central portions of Missouri. Those storms are going to be moving out of Kansas here as we get to the morning hours today. Here's a look at the radar and map image from Perry Weather, and I do want to try and make this full screen for you all to be able to see. There we go. And you can see low pressure system moving into Kansas. We've got a line of storms that extends from central Missouri all the way down to the east of Shawnee, Oklahoma, down to about Wetumpka here, and then continuing farther south and west to the Red River Valley here. Not even yet to Jacksboro as of 7:30 Central this morning. Lots of lightning with these, but also lots of severe wind and some hail. We've not seen a lot of tornadoes for the time being, but wind shear is expected to pick up. You can see certainly we're getting crushed here across places like Ada, Oklahoma, and farther north and east, moving into the Tulsa region. Muskogee is going to be under the gun here as well. And we continue to see warnings on the doorstep of Joplin, Missouri, as well as just to the west here of Jefferson City, Missouri. And these cells are expected to continue to lift north and eastward here, as you're going to see here across the next hour. This is our future forecast showing storms that are going to be moving a little bit more quickly off to the north and east and moving into southeastern portions of Iowa here. Let me take the surface analysis off for you all to be able to see that. And just a rough couple of hours expected here this morning over eastern Oklahoma, northern Texas, including DFW, portions of the Ozarks region, and all the way up into Illinois. In fact, we have lightning occurring where temperatures are barely to freezing here over southern portions of Michigan, just to the south of Lansing and near Jackson, Michigan as well, showing us that even this first piece of energy coming through is bringing a lot of instability with it. But then after this area of storms lifts north and eastward, we get into the warm sector, and then that's when things become more favorable for more widespread severe weather. Here's a look at our current tornado watch picture here. Tornado watch 94 in effect till 10 a.m. this morning over portions of Missouri. We also have a watch that will be expiring pretty soon in Oklahoma, and a new tornado watch that brings us a moderate risk for not only tornadoes, but stronger tornadoes, wind, and hail over far eastern Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri, including Springfield and Joplin, and northwestern Arkansas, including Fort Smith, Fayetteville, and just to the west of Harrison, Arkansas. Again, here's a wide view of what's going on today. High risk, including almost 2.5 million Americans from Memphis and Jonesboro up to far southern portions of Illinois, including Cape Girardeau and Cairo, including Mayfield, Kentucky as well. We have a moderate risk that has almost 6 million Americans in it. Louisville, Kentucky, Little Rock, Evansville, Indiana, Clarksville, Bloomington, Indiana as well, right on the campus of IU. And an enhanced risk, which could still be extended northward, that basically goes from west of DFW, even Abilene, Texas, all the way up to Chicagoland, St. Louis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Lexington, Nashville, Tennessee, central and northern Indiana, and southern lower Michigan. And this could still get extended a little farther north based on what I'm seeing in today's data. But nonetheless, this entire area is at risk. The area that's greatest at risk for strong tornadoes, EF3s and 4s, maybe 5s. I say maybe 5. We don't really know until they go in and rate them afterwards. But the highest risk is going to be in that high risk area of 30%. However, anybody that's got the hatching here, that's 22 million Americans, basically from Indianapolis down to Nashville, Tennessee, and Cincinnati as well, is at risk of seeing a strong tornado. And a lot of those will happen later in the day today and even into the first portion of tonight. Nonetheless, there could still be tornadoes outside of the area that may not be quite as strong. But if you're in Michigan, Illinois, eastern Iowa, even eastern Missouri, you definitely need to be alert for these. I do think parts of Ohio could also have that risk, and even southwestern Ontario, places like Sarnia and Windsor are at risk of seeing perhaps a few tornadoes as we get to early tonight. Wind damage, this is something I think could extend farther north and east, and we could see a greater risk of that unfolding depending on how things play out later on today. But almost 50 million Americans could see significant wind damage, meaning significant power outages, trees down, and certainly the risk for these to cause fatalities. And I don't take that lightly. I'm very, very much wanting to save lives here. But if you're in this area, you're at risk of getting hit by a falling tree. If you're driving around today or tonight, you need to take that seriously. We saw that happen, unfortunately, in Michigan and Indiana on Sunday. We need to take that risk seriously as well as we get into later today and into this evening. Large hail is also going to be a potential problem here for many of us in the central United States. And in particular, North Texas could see massive hail, not just this morning, but another wave coming into the area tonight as our next disturbance moves in. So DFW, Fort Worth, we've got a lot of folks here at risk of seeing some large hail, perhaps 2 inches or more in diameter. So that's what we're looking at for today. I do want to share with you some machine learning models. Now, the NATOcast tornado risk is a little farther east, the high risk is, than where the Storm Prediction Center has it, but you are still certainly within play in Arkansas and far northern Louisiana, the Mississippi, Tennessee area here around Memphis and South Haven, all the way up into western Ohio is at risk of stronger tornadoes. But the Storm Prediction Center's high risk is about 50 to 100 miles west of where NATOcast has it. NATOcast shows it happening later in the evening across northwest Tennessee, just east of Memphis, and all the way up towards places like Owensboro and Evansville. Again, I would not get too obsessed with the color that you're under. If you're in this hatched area that's got the solid white line around it, you are definitely at risk of seeing strong tornadoes. This is the Colorado State machine learning as well. Again, highlighting our area that's likely to have stronger tornadoes. It's more in line with the Storm Prediction Center. Actually has a risk later tonight all the way down in Louisiana. It's got the bullseye near South Haven, Mississippi, and Memphis, Tennessee, but has the risk for tornadoes extending all the way into central Michigan, eastern portions of Wisconsin, and even on the doorstep here of southwestern Ontario. There's a threat for hail in this area, but I do want to point out that it's a little more conditional. But if the storms that develop here in Missouri this morning are able to hold together here later today and into this evening, there's actually going to be a substantial damaging wind threat for significant straight line winds that encompasses the entire southern half of Michigan, far southwest Ontario, northwestern, north central portions of Ohio, northern Indiana, and northeastern Illinois. That includes Chicago, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Flint, Michigan, Saginaw, Detroit, Toledo, South Bend, Fort Wayne, Sandusky, maybe even on the doorstep of Cleveland, Ohio, at risk of seeing hurricane force wind gusts right on through to this evening, mainly late today into this evening. And then even greater risk for damaging winds with the tornado threat over Tennessee, Mississippi, and also across the lower Ohio River Valley. So here's a look at the ingredients that are going to be in play here. First, I'm going to show you the low-level wind jet. You can see this is what's allowing our storm system to strengthen. It's what's been responsible for the severe weather that we've had already during the overnight and pre-dawn hours today. And you can see that the jet is actually going to strengthen later this morning across central Illinois and then expand northeastward into Michigan. And that's what's going to draw our instability and our warmer, more humid air northward. And as these wind fields increase, I mean, you can see wind speeds at 70 to 80 knots here at 850 millibars. This likely enhances the amount of wind damage we're going to see here in a few waves as this moves eastward here into the Great Lakes. Unfortunately, there's going to be additional increases in wind speeds in the middle and lower levels of the atmosphere that are going to line up with more instability and allow for more tornadoes to form in the warm sector down here. As we do have a powerful jet streak that's going to be moving in. And you can see later on this evening and overnight tonight, the wind field actually increases over Ohio and Indiana, but we do lose some of the instability. So it's going to be a battle to see how long these storms can hold together. But I would definitely be on guard here across northern Ohio, northwestern PA, and southwestern Ontario, of course, in addition to the other areas that I've mentioned here. As we get to the overnight hours, even though we have a strong jet streak moving into New England, it's a lot more cool and a lot more stable in this area. Temperatures drop off significantly, so the wind damage threat probably comes down. But in the wake of this, unfortunately, you can see we have more southwesterly and southerly flow. There's another upper level disturbance in Texas tomorrow that is going to bring more moisture out of the Gulf and into unstable environment here to create more severe weather. So the risk for severe weather once again returns tomorrow and maybe even increase towards the nighttime tomorrow night in Texas and southern portions of Oklahoma and Arkansas. And then Friday, we wash, rinse, and repeat. We do the same on Saturday and probably Sunday as well. And then finally, next week, we start to see things moving on out. I'm going to show you something I haven't shown you all before. This is The probability of tornadoes from the HREF. It's the High Resolution Ensemble Forecast. This is straight from the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, and this is the ensemble. So it's going to give us kind of an average of what the short range models are showing. And you can see the risk for tornadoes through about early afternoon does begin to grow somewhat in northwest Arkansas, central Missouri, and also western Illinois. So definitely keep an eye on this. This is not to scare folks, but the threat is already beginning here before we even get to the meat of this event, unfortunately. As we move this further into time, you'll see the risk continues to grow. This is up through about 4 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Central. So basically from about lunchtime to mid-afternoon, we are likely going to have some tornadoes on the ground in central Illinois and around St. Louis and down to about Rolla, Missouri, and possibly even into the Ozarks region of Arkansas as well. If you're in far southeastern Iowa, you too are at risk. I don't want to ignore you there as well. So certainly we need to be watching that. But again, our risk continues to grow. And in the 4, 5, 6 o'clock hours, the risk is actually at its highest. Oh, man, I jumped past. I'm sorry. I already spoiled it for you. The risk is actually highest through the end of the afternoon across central Illinois. But then it begins to grow this evening in Arkansas and then eventually western Tennessee and northwestern portions of Mississippi. This is Mississippi here. This is Arkansas. This is Tennessee. You can see the Mississippi River definitely going to be under the gun tonight at about 6, 7, 8 o'clock. I'm going to move this forward, and you'll see the risk actually grows more after dark, so about 9, 10 o'clock tonight. I'm really concerned about Jonesboro, Paragould, Arkansas, moving to West Memphis, Arkansas, and Memphis, Tennessee. And then that threat actually sticks around overnight, continues into western Tennessee. And I mean, the risk is still high, even in the overnight hours for tornadoes here. I will take you to other parts of the country as well. It's tough to get everything on one map. So let's go to the southeast here real fast. And you all can see that Arkansas obviously could be ground zero early tonight. Northwest Mississippi is at risk. Western Tennessee is at risk. Not a high risk for strong tornadoes back into northwest Louisiana or northeast Texas. But as we get to tomorrow, there actually will be some wind shear and another repeat here where we could have a couple of stronger tornadoes somewhere in northern Mississippi, northwest Alabama, or western and middle Tennessee. So unfortunately, we're not done after tonight. There's more activity to potentially monitor for tornadoes tomorrow, and a little bit of a max here showing up in southwestern Arkansas towards 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow. All right, I'm going to take you up to the Great Lakes region here. I know we got a lot to cover here, and I apologize for the length of this video, but I don't want to leave folks out that are at risk. Let me see if I can load it up here in the Northeast. Here we go. You can see, obviously, Illinois is going to be under the gun, and far northwest Indiana will be as well before about 6 o'clock this evening. Tonight, though, things get nasty around Chicagoland, especially early in the evening, about 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And then we see the increase in the threat for tornadoes over southern Michigan, western Ohio, and even into northwestern Ohio here. Eventually, we get into more of a straight line wind threat as this front pushes eastward, but there will be several hours where Indiana definitely needs to take this risk seriously for severe weather. Same goes for Kentucky. Now, as we get into the overnight hours and tomorrow, the wind shear drops off significantly, and the risk for tornadoes will be a lot smaller, but there will still be a risk over southern and eastern portions of Kentucky tomorrow afternoon. Here's a look at what the NAM is showing as far as the timing of our lines of storms here. You can see multiple lines moving through Missouri this morning, eastern Oklahoma, then Arkansas and eastern Missouri under the gun. There may be another line that forms. So we're going to have to watch and see what happens here. We could have a few supercell storms later in the day in central Illinois, but the area I think we're going to be watching with greater concern is going to be here in central and eastern Arkansas towards about 4 or 5 o'clock. And then you can see what happens tonight. We are likely to see destructive storms across this area, and these are going to be moving northeast. Then we have a heavy rain threat continuing. So even after the severe weather threat ends, we still have rain falling overnight tonight in central Arkansas and maybe several inches of rain. Tomorrow we see more of the same here, but less on the risk of stronger tornadoes, more risk for some strong winds and heavy rainfall. And unfortunately, Friday, you can see the next wave comes in. So if you're in Texas here, we may get hit pretty hard this morning around DFW, say 10 or 11 o'clock. Then we get a break. Additional storms are going to form very late in the night and early tomorrow and then lift up into Oklahoma. So we are going to see more return flow out of the south, pushing the boundary north of you. And back in parts of the southwest and Colorado, we are likely going to have some moderate snowfall, but more snow coming as we get towards the weekend. There's actually a stronger system aloft that's going to be moving into this region. All right, let's pan farther to the north here and going to take you up into the north central states, where it is going to be snowing hard as we move through the day here in Minnesota and the Dakotas. We may have thunderstorms all the way up to the Iowa-Minnesota border. You can see it's going to be a rough morning as well across northwestern Indiana, Michigan, and eastern Wisconsin. We could see some hail and some strong winds here even before lunchtime in central and southern Michigan as temperatures are going to warm up. However, the area of greater concern is coming in behind this towards the evening hours. And you can see this is actually going to be about 10, 11 o'clock, maybe even midnight when the worst of these winds moves through. So if you're watching me here from Michigan, northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, you need to be on guard for overnight severe weather, unfortunately. Southwest Ontario as well, going to be under the gun here late in the night tonight. And this could actually be a destructive line that moves through places like Toledo around 4 or 5 in the morning, then Cleveland around 6 or 7. And then finally, it does fade by the time it gets into Pennsylvania and Western New York. At least I expect that it will. So that's what we're concerned about here. I'm going to show you state by state real quick. Here's the NAM model for Missouri. You can see how it's going to be rough this morning. And then, unfortunately, more development expected this afternoon. And southeastern Missouri definitely under the gun as we head into the night tonight. Same goes for west central Illinois. And then finally, things clear overnight tonight, but more showers and storms expected tomorrow. At this point, I don't think we see widespread severe weather, but I do think we have heavy rain to deal with, especially later in the day and into the nighttime hours. And flooding could certainly be a concern in the Ozarks region later tomorrow afternoon into the night tomorrow night. St. Louis as well, Carbondale, Cape Girardeau, Sykeston, all of these areas, western Kentucky, will be under the gun for significant flooding. Here's a look at Arkansas. And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly for you all. This model run is from earlier today, so let's move it on to this morning here. And you can see rough weather moving into the state later this morning. And then things are actually going to get really bad around dinner time, unfortunately, around Searcy, Conway, Little Rock, and Hot Springs. And then these storms continue eastward where there will be a high tornado potential. You can see that around Jonesboro, the potential for a PDS, particularly a dangerous situation tornado, due to the fact that we have such a strong amount of low-level wind shear that's going to turn the atmosphere up and create a very high favorable environment for stronger tornadoes. I don't guarantee you that this exact sounding is going to work out the way it's showing here, but this indicates there's still certainly a chance for an EF4 tornado, if not even an EF5, which we have not seen in a while, unfortunately. This risk continues through the evening hours. Storms are not going to be rushing eastward. They're going to come through in multiple lines. And I-40 is just going to be a mess here through the overnight hours. And then more storms expected tomorrow. And tomorrow night, we could have more severe weather, unfortunately, across this area. But I think Friday is actually going to have a little bit better risk to see that happen. I'm going to shift you over to Kentucky and Tennessee here. And you're going to see storms moving in this evening from the west. And we will see possible tornadoes here coming in not just one wave, but maybe a second or even third wave behind it here. And unfortunately, a lot of these come during the overnight hours. If you're in Mayfield or Paducah, you're at risk of seeing this during the midnight hour. The risk continues overnight towards about Clarksville and Bowling Green and Louisville and possibly Cincinnati by daybreak tomorrow morning. Storms are going to hit a certain wall, and then they're going to lift back northward tomorrow. We lose the strong wind shear, and we lose some of the instability, but we continue the risk for extreme amounts of heavy rain and maybe some severe wind and hail as well tomorrow afternoon and continuing tomorrow night. And then everything lifts north of the Ohio River later tomorrow night and dumps heavy rain on southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southwestern portions of Ohio. And the storms just continue. The beatings continue here, unfortunately, into the day on Friday. Take you to Illinois and Indiana here, and then we're going to look at Michigan, and then I'm going to wrap this video up with today's forecast. Or with tomorrow's forecast. So here's a look at Illinois, multiple waves of storms moving through. Some of them could be severe. And then you can see as the next jet streak moves in, we have to really closely watch this line of storms as it crosses western Illinois early in the evening tonight, and then moves into the Chicagoland here around dark tonight, and then moves quickly across Indiana into southwestern Michigan late this evening and overnight. If you're in Indianapolis, I pull up a sounding for you here for 1 in the morning. You could see that there is a good amount of wind shear down here, and that's not good, unfortunately, putting us at risk of maybe a stronger tornado in central and southern Indiana here during the overnight hours tonight. The good news is that tomorrow I don't think we see severe weather across these areas. The bad news is that it's going to be cool and wet and probably pretty pretty stormy here through the overnight hours tomorrow night, with more storms expected, but less severe weather at that point. Finally, let's take a look at Michigan and northwestern Ohio. Well, all right, we'll start with Michigan first. And we have rounds of showers and storms lifting northeastward. It's going to rain most of the day here in central Michigan. We could have severe weather for a time. Then we may get a little bit of a break. And then the main line of storms tonight is what I'm most concerned with, producing a few tornadoes and strong winds. If I pull up a sounding here from Jackson, Michigan here later this evening, you will see the wind shear increases, the wind field increases, and the risk for some stronger tornadoes is certainly going to be in play here as we get to the late evening and overnight hours. So make sure you've got ways to receive warnings if you are in Michigan tonight. As to your neighbors to the south, you will see, though, tomorrow should be a lot quieter across this area. We're just going to have cloud cover and maybe some lighter showers moving into the state by Friday morning. And last but not least, we're going to take a look at Ohio here. I'm going to ignore the other states today. Not that I don't think you need to be concerned, but the threat is mainly out of your area. Here's Ohio. We could have a few stronger cells moving through around lunchtime or late morning. Another round coming in early tonight, but the main line is likely to move in here during the late evening hours and then overnight tonight and early in the day tomorrow. It should weaken as it gets east of Columbus and Mansfield and Akron, but we still need to be concerned with possible severe weather affecting you tomorrow morning. And then rounds of heavy rain will continue after that. And it's very unsettled here for Thursday night and Friday morning across Ohio and western PA. Most of this stays north of you in West Virginia, but you should keep an eye on things tomorrow as well. Here's a look at the European model showing you what's going on after today. And you can see another wave comes up here for tomorrow morning. And then another wave comes up Thursday night and Friday morning. And this one we definitely need to be watching in Arkansas and northeast Texas. And then a stronger disturbance moves in on Saturday. And this day, I'm very concerned about severe weather down south. Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama as we get to Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. There's a strong upper level low that's going to be stuck in the southwest. It'll eventually budge, but not till Saturday night, Sunday morning. So unfortunately, some of these same areas that have been hit already during March are going to get hit once again. And then finally on Sunday, we see this front making a push east, but it may take a while to clear Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And northwest Florida and Georgia could have some unsettled weather on Sunday as well. Here's a look at the risk for severe weather tomorrow. Right now, it's a slight risk, but it's a massive area of over 42 million Americans. The tornado risk is highest from Tennessee down into East Texas. There's a strong wind and strong hail threat. In fact, we could see large hail across central and north Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, Shreveport, Bossier City, Louisiana, and central portions of Arkansas. And then as we move on to Friday, unfortunately, this risk doesn't really move much. It's still a pretty good chance for severe weather, including tornadoes, over portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, western Tennessee, and southeastern Missouri. And then as we move on to Saturday, we are likely to see a more significant outbreak of severe weather across the Delta region. This is the same area that had the strong tornadoes back during the middle of March. Unfortunately, another Saturday where we're going to be on our toes in northern Louisiana, southeastern Arkansas, central and northern Mississippi, southwest Tennessee, and possibly at night as well, a little farther south and east into Louisiana, Mississippi, and western Alabama. The risk for severe weather does shift eastward some by the time we get to the day on Sunday. And by Monday, we could have some rougher storms on the eastern seaboard, but I don't think we're dealing with a major outbreak of severe weather. I do want to backtrack to Saturday, though, because our machine models are showing a very substantial amount of severe weather centered near Greenwood, Mississippi, and Yazoo City. In fact, showing a 63% or higher chance of seeing severe weather sometime Saturday or Saturday night, more than likely in the afternoon and early evening. And the area that's hatched here has the risk of seeing stronger tornadoes. So we may see at least an upgrade to enhanced or moderate risk. And I would not be completely ruling out the possibility of another high-risk day on Saturday in parts of Mississippi, northeastern Louisiana, and southeastern Arkansas. Obviously, we've got some time before then, but we're going to be watching it closely. I do want to leave you all really quick with a word of encouragement. I end my videos with praise and with honor and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because that's who I am and that's what I believe. And the good news is that God can overcome the world. 1 John 5:4 says, "For everyone born of God overcomes the world." This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. And for those of us who believe, the great news is that we're not doing this alone. We have God that can take us out of the world, out of all of the evil and out of all the darkness, and provide us with the victory. He's already provided that through Jesus's resurrection. He's overcome the world. all we need to do is have some faith and not operate in fear, but instead operate in the hope of what's coming next, and that is eternal life. That is the good news I wanted to share with you all after all the bad news that I provided with the weather forecast. But I am going to try to be back on here late in the afternoon as things are likely to head downhill at that point. I appreciate you all joining me today, and everybody be safe. God bless.